You know, when you think of London, you probably picture a global titan of finance, right? A city of shimmering skyscrapers, centuries of prestige. But behind that gleaming facade, there's another story, a much darker reputation. Today, we're going to unpack how London became a global hub for hiding dirty money and why it's so incredibly hard to turn the lights on.
For decades, the city has really pushed itself as the world's financial capital. It's a place where money flows freely, pulling in investment and talent from absolutely every corner of the globe. And you know, this openness has been the engine of its incredible success.
But here's the thing. That exact same openness has made it the go-to destination for a very different kind of client. As the UK Parliament's own Intelligence Committee bluntly put it, London is also a laundromat for corrupt money. It's the place where illicit fortunes come to get a nice, clean wash.
So in this explainer, we're going to walk through it all. We'll start with the kleptocrat's playbook to see how it all works. Then we'll get into the web of secrecy that makes it possible. After that, we'll look at the UK's big attempt to fix it, see why the system is still failing, and finally, really understand the true price of all this secrecy.
So how does this actually work? I mean, how do you take billions in dirty money and make it disappear? Well, it's not random. There's a method to the madness, a specific, repeatable strategy, a kind of playbook for making illicit wealth just melt into the global financial system.
It really boils down to three key stages. First, you create a shell company somewhere offshore, in a place that values secrecy. Think of it like creating a financial ghost. Second, and this is the clever part, you build a maze. You layer the ownership of that first company through other companies in totally different countries. The whole point is to make tracing the money back to you a complete nightmare. And finally, you use that whole complicated setup to buy things, like luxury property in London. And then you use the UK's own top-notch legal system to defend your anonymity.
Okay, to really get our heads around this playbook, we need to look at the specific tools they use, the building blocks that make this entire system of secrecy possible.
And the most important idea, the one that everything else revolves around, is the beneficial owner. This is the real person at the very end of the line, the one who actually owns the asset, controls it, and gets the benefits. The whole offshore maze we just talked about, it's all designed for one single purpose: to hide the identity of this person.
And the main technique they use to do this is called wrapping. It's actually a pretty simple idea. Imagine you have the deed to a house. Instead of putting your name on it, you stick it inside a locked box. That box is a shell company. Then, to be extra safe, you put that box inside another, even bigger box that's from a different country. You own the outer box, but good luck to anyone trying to figure out what's inside the first one. That's wrapping, in a nutshell.
And this system is so effective because different offshore locations play different roles. First, you have what's called the entry layer. This is the company that acts as the front door, the one that officially owns the property in the UK. This is often based in a place like the British Virgin Islands. But behind that door, that's where you find the action layer, where the real hiding happens. A second company in a completely different country owns the first one, creating this multi-layered defense that is just incredibly difficult for investigators to break through.
So with all this going on, and facing a ton of criticism, the UK government finally decided it had to do something. They launched what was supposed to be the big fix, a powerful new tool designed to shine a bright light into this murky world. This was their big transparency test.
So, in 2022, after years and years of delays, the UK finally launched the Register of Overseas Entities, or the ROE for short. The concept was pretty simple, but the goal, it was incredibly ambitious.
On paper, the idea was brilliant. It was supposed to force any foreign company that owns property in the UK to finally, once and for all, declare its true beneficial owner, that key person we keep talking about. The whole point was to end anonymity, boost transparency, and make it much, much harder for kleptocrats to use British real estate as their own personal piggy bank.
But here's the twist, and it's a big one. Despite this landmark law, the system is failing. Critical loopholes and massive gaps in the register mean the ghosts are still very much in the machine.
And the scale of this failure is just staggering. According to analysis reported by The Guardian, the ultimate owners of over 100,000 properties held by foreign entities are still completely unknown. 100,000! Which, of course, leads to the obvious question. Hang on a minute. If there's an official register, how is this even possible? How can so many owners still be hiding in plain sight? Well, the answer lies in a series of really critical loopholes. For one, owners can use complex trust arrangements which are notoriously opaque and hard to penetrate.
Then there's a huge ownership threshold. If no single person owns more than 25% of the company, then technically no beneficial owner needs to be declared at all. On top of all that, you've got technical problems like data matching errors where government systems just don't talk to each other properly. And, believe it or not, some companies have just ignored the law and haven't bothered to register.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This isn't just speculation. The official verdict from the Financial Action Task Force, that's the big global money laundering watchdog, it confirms these weaknesses. As you can see right here, while they say the UK is largely compliant on the transparency of companies, they give it a much weaker partially compliant rating for crucial areas like customer due diligence and, importantly, the regulation of real estate agents, a key gateway for dirty money to get in.
Okay, so we've been deep in the financial weeds, but let's pull back for a second. Why does any of this actually matter? This isn't just about fancy houses and clever accounting. The price of this secrecy has profound real-world consequences, not just for the UK, but for democracies everywhere.
Because here's the really scary part. Dirty money doesn't just sit quietly in a mansion in Knightsbridge. Once it's been cleaned in London, that wealth gets weaponized. It's used to buy influence, access, and respectability. And it actively corrodes democratic institutions from the inside out.
As one expert put it so powerfully in the Financial Times, the kleptocrats are at war with democracy. This dirty money is a weapon. It's a tool used by authoritarian regimes and corrupt individuals to export their influence and undermine the rule of law in countries just like the UK.
And this poison works its way into the system in a few key ways. You've got reputation laundering, buying the veneer of legitimacy through huge donations to museums and universities. It's used for legal intimidation, where kleptocrats hire expensive law firms to sue journalists into silence. And of course, it's used to buy political access through donations, all in an effort to influence policy at the very highest levels.
And all of this brings us right back to the central challenge. The UK has created a register that's full of holes, allowing the dirty money machine to just keep on running. The tools of secrecy, it seems, are still far more powerful than the tools of transparency. Which leaves us with one final, urgent question. What will it truly take to finally turn the lights on in Londongrad?
So while markets rise and fall, systems like this quietly move billions behind the scenes. Hidden from the public, hidden from scrutiny, and sometimes hidden from the law itself. Because in global finance, the most powerful forces are rarely the most visible. And this is just one of the systems used by the unseen elite.